Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
Very pleased to be joined from NBC Sports, the outstanding Peter King. Peter, welcome back. Thank you so much for your time.
Steve, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Hey, Steve, I've got to tell you that I watched the whiteout game on TV last week against Auburn, and the first thing I thought of when I watched it was this has got to be the greatest home field advantage in sports today, that whiteout game. That's the first thing I thought. The second thing I thought was there's nothing like this, nothing in the NFL. It's just that is the coolest tradition. Whoever thought of that, give him a raise.
Guido D'Elia. Guido's the one that thought of it, and you always pick. You sit there. It's with all due respect to Fordham. You don't play the whiteout game with Fordham, so it's it's Notre Dame, it's Ohio State, it's Alabama, it's Michigan, it's Auburn. So it's a big game to begin with, and the fans are engaged. It's also at night, so the fans are really engaged all day. We'll leave it at that. And then you get to the atmosphere itself, because Jack Ham says the same thing. He says you don't see this in the NFL, and it's, I think, for some people becoming one of those, must-see things at least once in your lifetime you should be around. I know you're busy, but at some point, I think you'd really enjoy taking it in if you had a chance.
I'll tell you, what was interesting is that I was talking to Eric DeCosta, the GM of the Ravens. He was at the game. He was at the whiteout game, and he was just in awe of it. He just thought it was the coolest thing. But anyway, that's it's so fun to watch. And I just mentioned home field advantage because after I watched the first quarter, I said, "Oof, Auburn's pretty good." I applaud the Auburn coach. He said some really good things. I don't know any of these people, but he said some really cool things about why wouldn't you want to play in a game like this? Even though clearly it's going to be tougher than playing at noon on Saturday, probably by quite a bit. But even though it's the experience of a lifetime. Who wouldn't want an experience like that?
Exactly, and I think that was great for Auburn. It was great for Penn State. And not only that, it's a game where the team that won. The other team that didn't win played really, really well, but didn't lose.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
They didn't lose the game.
I can count on one hand the amount of college games in the course of the year that I watched from start to finish. But I watched that one start to finish. I was thoroughly engaged. It was cool.
Really cool. Speaking of cool, is the piece that NFL Films did with your father, about your father, your letter to your father. What was that experience like for you? And I'll admit it was cool for me because at least along the way of my life, I met your parents several times, and they were just awesome people. What was it like for you to write that?
Well, Steve, as you know, coming from Enfield, Connecticut, as you and I both do, you don't really grow up thinking that in whatever chosen profession you're going to do, that you're really going to the big leagues. And look, it isn't that my parents didn't put this feeling in me that, hey, you can do whatever you want. Well, parents are going to say that to you, but do you ever really believe it? And so I think my dad, obviously when I was a kid, my dad was a very encouraging parent, but he was not in any way a little league parent. In those days, parents didn't go to a lot of games. They didn't, my dad went to some games, but certainly not the majority of them when I was a kid. Many games, my Little League games, I just get on my bike and go home and relive it with my father sitting there watching the news or watching whatever on TV at home. And so, but my father always was one of these guys who, just really made me believe that, if you really want to do something, you got to attack it. You just got to attack it. And I just figured when I was 11 or 12 years old, I wanted to be a writer, and so a lot of good things happened to me. But the reason why NFL Films came to me is I wrote something earlier this year in a column. And I said, I've had a great run. It's been wonderful. My only regret is however much longer this lasts, year, 2, 5, I don't know. I'm 64. However much longer this lasts, I just have regrets that my dad never got to see it. He died in 1986, and I was just sort of kicking off my career at that point, and he just never really got to see very much of what happened. And so NFL Films called me and said, would you be interested in writing a letter to your dad? And we have some footage of you over the years with various players and after some games, in locker rooms, all that stuff. And here's what we have. Feel free to include it or not include it. And so, I had a little encounter with Richard Nixon in the Giants locker room.
Yeah.
Once Parcells used to throw some barbs at me at press conferences when I was covering the Giants. I got to know Favre real well, Peyton Manning. So they had some footage of me doing various things, and so I wrote it, and they came and spent 2 days with me, once in my apartment in Brooklyn and once on the road when I was on my training camp tour. And I just, I'm so grateful that they took that time, and that, that's just a really, really nice thing to have. Because half of the footage I have never seen before that they put in there. I didn't know it existed. Me and Brett Favre, I didn't know that. So a lot of that stuff, it's just kind of fun to have, and I'm really grateful to NFL Films.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because like you and I would play a game at Powder Hollow or Mark Twain.
Yeah.
And same thing. I'd get on my bike and ride home. My parents weren't there. So it's like, how'd you do?
Isn't it funny, Steve, how I coach girls softball in New Jersey, both with my daughters on the team, and then the last, I think, 8 years, I just was coaching kids from our little town in New Jersey, Montclair, New Jersey. And it was rare that one or both parents of every kid on every team. It would be rare if one or both were not there. Right. And in our day, it was rare that parents came.
Right.
It was just
exactly.
It was just so different then,
There's another element too. You talk about growing up in Enfield. Well, that means New England. And my brother still has his business in South Windsor, and if I bring up Tom Brady's name, Brady, and he just loves Brady. So you did the 6-state tour, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, to gauge New England. And again, this is another story I can really relate to. Obviously, you can too. What did you find out in that tour that maybe you didn't know?
All right, so here was the idea. I went to NBC and I said, let me go out to all 6 states. I'll interview one person in all 6 states. We ended up interviewing more than one in a couple of the states. But let me go out and interview one. I just want to take the temperature of how people feel about Tom Brady now going into this game against Tampa Bay in New England. And so what was really, really interesting is that there's a couple of people, absolutely Brady will never be able to do any wrong. These 2 lobster fishermen in Northeast Maine, man, was I out there, Steve. I was way out. I was way above Portland. It was amazing.
Wow.
And then the governor of New Hampshire came to this brew pub in Littleton, New Hampshire in the White Mountains. Absolutely, totally beautiful. And he came, and it was, hey, I idolize Brady. I don't hold it against him. And then we go to this little town, Newbury, Vermont, with this very prim and proper young teacher, a child of New England, just like me. She's from Longmeadow, Mass. And we turned on the camera, started interviewing her. She does not like Tom Brady. He turned his back on us. He betrayed us. I'm not going to be wearing his jersey, that kind of stuff. And then we went to a minister in Massachusetts who was straight down the middle, but he said, hey, Tom Brady built this house, meaning Gillette, Tom Brady built this house, but he doesn't live here anymore. So let's sack him 9 times on Sunday. And then this nurse in Providence, 71 years old. She's an ER nurse. Mm-hmm. And she's got a Patriots tattoo that she got on her right calf when she was 69. And she is an absolute Belichick devotee. And she said about Brady, hey, listen, there's 11 guys on offense. He's only one of them. We'll be fine. That was her take. So all over New England, I got all different takes. And I expected there to be more universal, we love Brady, we understand why he did it. That was not the case. Now, who knows what happens on Sunday? The founder of the Patriots fan club at Yale University told me, I said, how should they treat Brady? And he said, golf clap. And I said, a golf clap for 6 Super Bowls? Are you crazy? Oh. And he said, yeah, well, all we care about is the next one. So I left New England. I said, man, that's a rough crowd. It's like Rodney Dangerfield pulling in his collar saying, hey, it's a rough crowd tonight.
Well, because when you and I were growing up, they were the Boston Patriots, and they were in the AFL.
You know what, Steve? You know what?
I was a Giants fan.
Yeah, exactly. When we were growing up in northern Connecticut, which is now never has heard a discouraging word on the Patriots, but when we were growing up, the Patriots were a clear number 4 in Boston sports. It was probably the Celtics, then maybe the Red Sox and Bruins, and the Patriots were like, if I compare them, they're like the New England Revolution, the soccer team now. That some people are interested, but I mean, back then nobody cared about the Patriots, and so
it was
just
Bobby Orr first.
So much has changed.
Well, it was Bobby Orr first. It was Bobby Orr first.
Yeah, that's right. Bobby Orr was the Tom Brady in those days. Yeah. It was John Havlicek. It was Bill Russell, John Havlicek, Bobby Orr, and my dad loved Ted Williams, worshipped Ted Williams. But
so did my mom.
Obviously, I was 4 years old when he retired, so I never saw him or anything. But yeah, they had their idols. But I just keep thinking it's going to be like this. Favre leaves Green Bay. Everybody's bitter. And right now, Brett Favre, again, walks on water when he goes up to Green Bay. I think it'll be the same thing with Brady when he goes back in 10 years.
I know you got the doggy coming up, so I'm going to let you get to that. Thank you so much for your time today. It was just fun reminiscing about a few things, and both parts were phenomenal in the article this week.
Oh, hey, really appreciate it, Steve. Thank you so much. And hey, who's the Lions got this week?
Indiana, Saturday night, 7:30. Home. Stripe out.
And do they still have that quarterback, Indiana?
Yeah, Michael Penix, the left-hander.
Yeah. He'll make it an interesting game.
Oh, he'll make it an interesting game because I think he's a good thrower, but he also moves well, and that's what makes him dangerous.
Yeah. Do they don't have that receiver Whop anymore, do they?
No.
Guy who was named after the Burger King Whopper?
Yeah. Whop Fillier has moved on, but they have Type 5 for him.
All right, yeah.
Whop Fillier.
I kind of lost track of him. That was the best name in college football last year. But then how about the Auburn guy this year, the safety? He had the best name. What was his name again?
Smoke Monday.
Storm Monday.
Monday.
How great is that name?
Yes, Smoke. Smoke Monday.
Smoke Monday. Yeah, that was
and the
fantastic.
running back's Tank Bigsby. I mean, so they have them all.
Good name for a running back. Hey, Steve, take care. Thank you.